All right. Hello, warriors, and welcome to another week with me, Susie Pettit, your certified life and wellness coach. I am here today with a special treat for you all. I have Katherine Wintsch on the Love Your Life show. She dedicates her life to making the lives of mothers easier. In her role as founder and CEO of the Mom Complex, she works alongside companies such as Walmart, Johnson & Johnson, and Unilever to help develop better products and services for moms just like us. She is the author of a personal empowerment book, Slay Like a Mother, and she's helping moms around the world destroy what's holding them back so they can live a life they want to live. Katherine regularly writes about the topic of modern motherhood for Working Mother magazine and on the Slay Like a Mother Pro platform. Katherine's been featured by the Today Show, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, Fast Company, and now she's on the Love Your Life show. Yay and welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. Could you tell our listeners a little about how you got to where you are now, the head of a company dedicated to help change the way motherhood is viewed and defined?
Yeah, it was a little bit of a rocky road to get where I am right now. I talk about in the book that from age 15 to 35, I lived with what I refer to as a dragon of self-doubt, never really believing that I was good enough and that I had to hustle so hard in order to be loved, and was just always running and chasing titles and trophies and accolades and external forms of achievement and recognition. And I thought that's what it was all about. But then at age 35, I reached a pretty high peak in my career, but realized that I wasn't that happy, or I still felt like I needed to do more. So I embarked on a 2-year self-help journey where I read lots of self-help books, watched lots of Oprah episodes, learned to meditate, and healed myself and learned to love myself on the inside and not seek it from the outside, from other people. And I've never been happier.
Oh, that's so wonderful. And that is very much similar to my journey. So that is why I wanted you on this show, because I know it's similar to what a lot of moms out there and women are feeling. This idea of, being on I call it the treadmill of life, like go, go, go and do what you're supposed to do. And if you do this, then you'll be happy. And you sort of reach this point and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm not though. So what's going on?
Yeah, a woman reached out to me recently who read my book, Slay Like a Mother, and she had a really interesting take on this. And she said, I'd never thought about it this way, but she said, when you finally, grow up and realize that your success doesn't have to come from the outside, you realize, A, that it was there all along, but that B, you can eliminate the middleman, and the middleman is all the crap that you think that you have to do in order to be loved. So you have to volunteer for the PTA meeting, you have to run the fundraiser at school, you have to get the promotion at work, and when you eliminate the middleman, like all those activities that you thought were proving your worth, but they're meaningless most of the time, and it just frees you up for a lot less friction and frustration in your life. And my life isn't perfect. I still have a lot of struggles, but when I'm not yelling at myself and convincing myself that I need to be more than I am, then, I sleep a lot better at night.
Oh, absolutely. And that whole idea that we're just questing for something else. And I definitely have felt that my life is just easier now, or less full of drama. There's still a lot going on and I'm still juggling a lot, but there's so much less, I guess that is what the middleman in my head, that friction and that underlying unease. In your book, you do say here, I love this, where you said, I spent 2 decades trying to fill a hole inside of me, never feeling good enough. And that, trying to fill up that hole, and you can't fill it with becoming the PTA president or the room mom or the
right.
Yeah. Which is
Yeah, a friend of mine when I was in graduate school, it was actually a professor of mine, shared that metaphor with me. And he said, you have a leaky bucket. You know, you have a hole in the bottom of your bucket that you don't believe you're good enough. And your, you know, coping mechanism is just to put more crap in the bucket, you know, more titles, more trophies, more accolades, more volunteerism, you know, whatever it is. And, but that it's just going to keep leaking until you plug the hole up and you believe that you're good enough. And I spent so much less time doing stuff for other people just because they want me to. And I have that time back to myself. And to your point, you know, it doesn't mean life is a breeze. And in the book, I talk about the difference between struggling and suffering. And if you're struggling, then you're winning. I mean, being a mother is hard. It is no joke. It has always been hard, and it always will be hard. And you can't buy your way out, move your way out, grow your way out. I mean, even, you know, rich celebrities have a lot of struggles, you know, as a parent and as human beings. No one's void from it. And, but the difference with struggling is the difference is then that suffering is caused by yourself when you're in those struggles. And you believe you're the only person struggling and you think everybody else is perfect and you're nothing but a trash fire. But we also suffer when we yell at ourselves for not doing better in those situations. So for example, you know, feeding your family dinner every night is a struggle. Everyone struggles with that. But you suffer when you say that you suck because your children don't eat all their vegetables or you're a poor excuse for a mother. And unfortunately, fortunately, the suffering is done at our own hand. So at least we can control it.
Yeah, which is so, I loved that part of your book where you talk about struggling versus suffering. And I've always defined suffering as not accepting what is, like denying what is. But I loved, you mentioned a quote, I'm trying to find it real quick, by Eckhart Tolle that I really enjoyed also. I don't know if I can right now, Warriors, but yeah, we'll let that go for now. But just the whole like.
Well, he often says, yeah, I mean, Eckhart always says that, you know, stress, the definition of stress is an argument with what is. And it's being here, but wanting to be there. You know, it's being in the situation you're in, but not wanting to be there. And that's, you know, the definition of suffering. And the good news is that, you know, we allow our minds to time travel. We live in the future and we fear everything that's coming our way when we screw something up, and we live in the wreckage of our past. And, but Eckhart often talks about if we can stay in the present moment and just be right here, then we have very few, if any, problems. Most of our problems are in the future and the past.
Yeah, and so the one you said, Tolle says that when you long for a life that is different from and better than the one you're currently living, it creates friction and angst inside of you. And this is in a part of your book where you magically and wonderfully talk about expectations. But it is that I think so much of what we do as women is think that other people's lives are different and life should be different. And why am I feeling this way? And then we're creating that suffering, like everyone else has perfect meals on the table and everyone else likes sitting around and watching their kid do their math packet. And so why am I so?
Yeah. Why am I the crazy one? Right. Yeah, it's a pretty isolated. I mean, I was definitely in that place where I thought everybody else had everything figured out. And the thing that set me free was in my role as CEO of the Mom Complex. I had the opportunity to study mothers in 17 countries around the world. And this was the height of my own anxiety and just constant friction, internal friction. And fascinatingly, the research study revealed that the number one emotion all mothers had or experienced was self-doubt. And I thought, well, crap, if every mother is filled with doubt, my research says 9 out of 10 women are filled with self-doubt, not just mothers. But if everybody has the doubt, then why are we not talking about doubt? And why are we parading around? This should be very freeing. Like, I know as a researcher that you're likely to have self-doubt, and that everybody listening is likely to have self-doubt. So why don't we just talk about it instead of it isolating us and making us feel like losers?
Yeah. So why do we put on this facade? Because you're saying it's international, right? Like you've studied women and
Oh yeah. China, India. I mean, I just got back from India not too long ago, and women from Nigeria. I mean, it's so common. But I think that one of the reasons we wear the mask and say everything's perfect is because we've never wanted to do something better in our entire lives. I mean, it's rather important what we're doing. You're raising happy and healthy human beings, and it comes with a lot of pressure. But interestingly, my research shows that 75% of the time, a woman's self-doubt was born before or during adolescence. And so it's not something that motherhood brings on for the most part. It just exacerbates it and makes it worse. So my research shows usually during the teenage years, sometimes before, for women, something happened in your life that cut you hard, hurt you deep, and it could stem from anything from terrible incidences like abuse and neglect all the way to somebody making fun of you in the third grade because you didn't pronounce the word correctly. Excuse me. And so it's when your self-esteem kind of took its first big hit. And this is so much more likely to happen to women than men. And then we spend the next 20 years of our lives, from teenagers until we eventually wise up, in our 40s and realize it doesn't really matter. But we spend those years collecting evidence. Oh, that's right, I'm not good enough. Oh, that's right, I'm not smart enough. Oh, that's right, I'm not thin enough. And we collect evidence that makes us feel, even worse about ourselves. And it's just not as common in men. And my research shows that everybody has a critical voice in their head, a negative voice. But for the most part, with men, it tends to be more critical than it is cruel. But a woman's negative voice in her head is mean and cutthroat and disgusting. And that's a pretty hard thing to live with every day.
Oh, it's incredibly hard. And it also, I mean, that is one of the biggest steps for me, and I know you speak about this in your book, is to bring awareness to that. Like, what are we telling ourselves? And what is that? Like, if we had a twin sister that was right by us telling us this stuff all the time, we'd probably push her away and like, sorry. And so I guess that is one of the pieces of why we do then care so much what other people think, because we're not thinking much of ourselves, and then we're trying to
yes and then we inflate the strengths of other people because we don't feel that great about ourselves. So for example, you go over to your friend Karen's house and she makes a great pot roast for dinner, and then all of a sudden in your mind you're like, I bet she sleeps with her husband every night. Her children have straight A's. She's never been in financial debt. I mean, the wheels start spinning, that just because someone is talented or had a good day in one area of their life, that then extends to every aspect of that woman's life. And it just becomes this runaway train of they're perfect and I'm pathetic.
Well, and how interesting that it goes from, curiosity to this, like, oh, look, she made a nice pot roast, she must have had time, to this inner judgment. And that's where, being the watcher of our mind can be so helpful. Just, why did I turn that against myself? And
Yeah, and I'll give everybody a tip there. So, there is a direct correlation between your ability to kind of inflate the strengths of others and have it be an indictment against you. That if you don't feel good enough about yourself, that when other people do well, it immediately means that you suck. And a way that this is a practice, and you do have to train your mind to think this way. So one way to get practice is, let's say you've never done yoga or you've never done, painting before. Then I would say, rather than sign up for a beginner class of yoga or painting, sign up for the intermediate class. And for an entire hour, you'll be surrounded by people that are better than you. And can you love yourself during that whole hour? And can you see people, standing on their head in yoga class and think, wow, good for her, instead of, wow, look at her, I suck because I can't even touch my toes. So it's a great practice just to see, like, can you feel good and happy for other people that are better than you without you feeling like you suck?
Mm-hmm. I love that. And that, yes, you shine the love on them and you can maybe shine it on you. And that's one of those. I found that once I started to change that internal voice with myself and my own inner critic, I got so much less judgmental of everyone else because I was judging them based on my own insecurities. But I now, I'm much more likely to be like, wow, look at that lady. She's got it all together. Go her. Versus in the past, it would have been like, oh my God, look, she's showered. But it's because I was.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't she fancy? Yeah. Oh, anytime we attack other people, it's a direct correlation to how we feel about themselves. And I think it's important for people to know that the negative or the critical voice in your head is never going to completely go away. You still have one, I still have one, but you can be aware of it, which reduces its power over you. And you can also teach it some manners. So I'll give you an example. I mean, first of all, for 20 years of my life, I had this horrible voice in my head yelling at me all the time, but I didn't even know it was there. I was just listening to it all day, every day, until finally going to a therapist and listening to a lot of other, self-help books, reading them. I realized it was there, but now I can catch it in the act. So the other day I was giving a talk about the book and I was in front of this big audience and I showed this video and I happened to be in the video. And as soon as my face came up on this huge screen, I was like, oh my God, Katherine, you look awful. And because I did. I mean, it was not a good moment for me. I looked like I was half alive. But anyway, but I heard it. So while I'm saying, God, Katherine, you look awful, I was like, and then I backed up and I restated what I wanted to say as though I was speaking to a friend or someone that I love. And so I said, you know what, Katherine, you don't look great in that video, but some days you do. Mm. And that's what I would say to a friend, because if a friend said I look terrible in that video, I wouldn't be like, oh, no, you don't. You look great. It would be like, it's not your best moment, but some days are better, Yeah. And so that's an example of, I still, old habits die hard. Some of the negativity still comes back, but I hear it. So it doesn't, run over me and I don't just absorb that negativity. But number two, I can teach it some manners.
Mm-hmm. I love that because I love thinking. I know that for many years when I was, diving into the self-help and hoping there was something more than what my life experience was, trying to find that life that I love, I heard from many people, well, you have to start to love yourself, treat yourself better, have more self-compassion. I was like, how? But I like that idea that, listeners, please hear. So first step, awareness, which we're always, so just become aware that voice is just a voice in your head. It's that thoughts are not truth. And then teach it manners, get some separation in there. I really like that a lot. Do you have other tips on how to start moving away from sort of the people pleasing or caring what other people think so much?
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I would say, you briefly mentioned it earlier, but expectations. I think expectations are the root of all evil and suffering. And I believe in having high expectations, but unrealistic expectations are only going to set you up for suffering. And so I'll give your listeners a really quick, tangible tool. And that is when you're going through anything new, let's say you're going through a divorce or you're just recently diagnosed with breast cancer, or you just moved to a new town. You need to expect that things are going to be hard and they're going to get messy. And if you need a reminder, what I did when I was writing Slay Like a Mother, which is my first book, it was very hard. It was very challenging. It's 75,000 words. It's very personal. But long about chapter 10, I started to beat myself up. Like, I should be faster at this. I should be better at this. I'm on chapter 10. And so I took a little Post-it note. And I wrote, I expect this to be hard. And I put it on my computer. And every day when I sat down to write this book, I started with the expectation that it was going to be hard. So that by 2:00 in the afternoon, when it was hard, I wasn't beating myself up because I wasn't expecting it to be easy. So if you need to put it on your dresser or your nightstand and in your car, but just give yourself some grace if you're going through, we have a lot of changes that occur in our life and transitions, and we just expect to be perfect at them when we've never done them
Well, and
before.
I think there is a piece of the self-help industry that I've tried to be aware of, that I'm not doing this too much either, that like life should always be rosy and wonderful and you should always feel happy. And then when we're not, it's like, oh my gosh, this isn't what we see. Or when you're not the mom, cleaning the toilet in high heels, singing a song. Oh, wait, what's wrong? Oh, like something's going wrong here. And one of my favorite mantras is, nothing's gone wrong here. Like, it sounds similar to your, like, expect this to be hard, it's like, okay, nothing has gone wrong here. This is normal. This is life. Life is hard, and not bringing the suffering in.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I'll give you one more tip that just kind of helps people move towards self-compassion. And that is spending time by yourself, or spending time doing things that you love and not giving all your time away. And there's a whole chapter on learning to say no in the book. But what I talk about is that if you look at your calendar for tomorrow, the next day, and there's not enough of you on your calendar, then it means at its most basic level that you believe other people deserve your time more than you do. Mm-hmm. That's what you believe, that your partner deserves it more, the PTA teacher deserves it more, your son deserves it more, but you deserve some of that time. And when you give it all away, it's an indication of how you feel about yourself. And so my tip here is that your calendar this week is a mess. And then that's why people say, I don't have time to exercise or do anything because my calendar is so full. But my push would be to say that 8 weeks from now, your calendar is not full. It's just not. And so fast forward 2 months from now and start putting reoccurring meetings on your calendar for you. It could be lunchtime yoga. It could be a walk first thing in the morning. It could be a walk at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And it doesn't have to be healthy. I'm not some health nut. It could be drinking wine with your girlfriends. But it's things that are important to you. And the difference is that when you put them in reoccurring meetings for, every Wednesday, every Tuesday, then you show up to those weeks with balance already built into your life. And then on my calendar, I color code all of those events in purple. I call it my mojo, like color, like on the calendar coloring. And if I get to any week because I do delete some of the purple. I mean, I don't make it to all the stuff, but if there's not enough purple, then I know something's wrong. Mm-hmm. I know that I'm slipping back into my old people pleasing ways, and I'm not leaving enough time for myself. And so that's something that's really easy to do. And there's just something, I don't know, almost spiritually different when you are deleting yourself from your calendar as opposed to putting yourself there. So it just makes it a little bit easier.
Oh, I love that idea. And I know, I was one that used to say, I don't have time for these things. And I know many listeners do, their schedules are full, but to think, look 8 weeks out and you do have time there. So what is, one thing you wish you had time for this week, then put it there. I love that. That also, right. I heard you say at some point that busyness is anesthesia for an empty life.
Yeah.
I love that. And I know for me, I used to race around telling myself, oh, I'm so busy. I'm so busy. I'm so busy. And even like a scheduled coffee with a friend, it's like, okay, I have 45 minutes and now I'm off to the next thing and off to the next. And why do you think we do that?
Well, I think that we seek approval and affection from people outside of ourselves. And so the more that we do for other people, the more opportunity that we have to feel good about ourselves. And so, saying yes to the fundraiser at school is not just an opportunity to help your son. It's an opportunity to feel better about yourself, as a mother. And that's why saying no can be so hard for women. But I will say that once you start doing it, you will very quickly see that people don't care about you as much as you think they care about you.
I love that.
They just don't. I mean, you will say no and the fundraiser will still happen and the tennis team will still play tennis and the job will still get done at work. And so it's one of the things that you just have to dip your toe in, you have to start doing. And then once you start doing it, you're like, oh, crap. I could have been doing this so long ago and I didn't.
It
And,
is like flexing that muscle and just trying
mhm.
to yeah, first of all, the fundraiser will go on, and maybe the fundraiser person will give you a little back, like, oh, come on, you do this so well. It's like, yeah, I do this well, but right now I'm choosing not to. Or it doesn't mean they won't
Yeah.
have more fun with you there, but it means they can get on without you, which is,
Yeah, yes. Otherwise, you live the life that I lived where you're just like, yes, 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 absolutely. I'm on it. And then you just wake up one day and you're so bone tired, exhausted, and, you're successful on the outside and people like you, but you're exhausted and hollow on the inside. And so, I say in a lot of my talks that I interview a lot of older mothers from time to time in their 80s and 90s so that we can have some perspective. And I was talking to an 85-year-old mother named Nancy not too long ago. And I said, what advice would you give, younger moms? And she said, just put your head down, do the best you can, and don't worry about what anybody else thinks. And it's my belief that we're all going to end up where Nancy is. If we're blessed enough to live 85 years, we will all say what Nancy says. The crap we worried about didn't matter. And just put your head down and do the best job you can. And so let's just get there faster. That's what I want to help women do. Like, let's learn that lesson at 35 instead of 85. And let's learn it at 55 instead of 85. And let's teach our daughters this so that we don't have to delay the satisfaction and relief that comes with, being older.
yeah. And that is what I love so much about your work, because you do get up and speak up and say, yeah, this isn't great. Motherhood is tiring and it is difficult, but we're making it harder than it needs to be by putting on this face of, oh yeah, I've got it all covered. And to start small steps, even noticing like, okay, after you get off social media, you feel like crap. Well, why? Well, it's because you were following these moms who have, the pot roast and look perfect. And
Right.
it's like, okay, so unfollow them and stop judging yourself. Yeah, I love what you're doing. It's getting away from the suffering, recognizing it is hard. We've never done it. We don't know what we're doing. I mean, even at any stage, I can look back. My kids are now 15, 17, 19, 21, and 23. I can look back and see a mom with a 4-year-old, who's obsessing over the organic whatever. And
yeah.
I'm just like, honey, it's okay. They will reach a point you're like, okay, just don't eat all the Pop-Tarts at once.
Right. No, I do talk about in that book too. And it's, there are massive stages, of motherhood. And unfortunately, being a mother to a 2-year-old does not train you in any way, shape, or form for being the mother of a 12-year-old. I mean, it's a different skill set. It's a different experience. But then by the time our one child is 12, we beat ourselves up and yell at ourselves like, come on, Katherine, you've been a mother for 12 years. Can't you figure this crap out? And, and it's like, well, yeah, I have been a mother for 12 years, but I've been a mother to a 12-year-old, for a matter of days. I don't know what I'm doing. But we don't give ourselves that grace. We just expect that somehow we know how to manage teenagers.
I love it. And I wrote this down. You were talking about moms being so tired, and that we're so tired, not from work, but from piling all of our doubts, fears, and insecurities on top of the regular tasks of womanhood. That yes, motherhood is tiring, but it doesn't tire your soul. What tires our soul is the warped belief that you can and should be doing better. And that we should know better somehow, or that, we should know how to parent a 12-year-old. How? I've never had one. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is the first generation too of mothers that are coming out saying, hey, this is hard, or like, hey, I don't know what I'm doing. And so we have to give ourselves grace there. I mean, I never heard my mother or either one of my grandmothers say that motherhood was hard. I never saw them sweat. Everything was just, above the board and everything was fine. And so I am hopeful for even, younger women, if they can see a generation of mothers talking about the struggles and the highs and the lows of just life in general, then I think it can be less secretive and less taboo. And, I say all the time, I think everybody should have a therapist. Mm-hmm. And the best money I've ever spent. And we know more about every subject in the world than we do about our own minds and our brains and, you know, how we operate and our personality and our sensitivities. And I think it's a worthwhile thing to really study.
Oh, 100%. Just taking some time to dig into ourselves and slow down and figure it out is absolutely helpful. And I feel that we're in this different age now too, where we are, you know, the working mom and the stay-at-home mom, and you know, we have all these roles together on our plate. And whether, you know, if you're not a mom, you also still have this womanhood. And what I really try to get out to people is that it's so much easier when we speak up too, when we do show that vulnerability.
Yeah.
I lived the life when I was like, no, everything's fine here. I'll do the dishes. I'll do the laundry. I'll run out, you know, fry up the bacon, whatever. And I would have such resentment inside of me, but I wasn't asking.
Oh, yeah.
I was saying everything was fine. So why would anyone? Yeah. It's this piece. It's like,
I say people who don't, I always say people who don't ask for help don't get help. And, you know, and we walk around and we juggle 180 balls, you know, in the air, and we're like, I'm fine. But, you know, people want to help you. And that's what I found when I finally was like, uncle, like, I can't, you know, schedule all the kids stuff. I can't do this. I can't do that. People in my family or people I love, like, oh, great, I'll help you. I've always wanted to help. I mean, they can see that so many mothers are just control freaks, and we want everything to be perfect. And so we don't, the Washington Post calls it the gatekeeping mom. Like, we don't allow people, we're like, our husband's going to screw up the kids' lunches if he tries to make them, or, you know, I mean, all these excuses, and then we kind of maintain all the control. But it'll definitely wear you out. And one tip I have for this, talking about introspection too, is make a list of the battles that you want to win in your life right now. You know, like, I really want to win the, like, healthy food battle at home, you know, or right now I want to win the battle of getting a big promotion at work, whatever, couple things. But even more importantly, write down the battles that you're willing to lose, because you can't win everything and you can't be great at everything. And so, as an example, I am willing to lose being seen as a great mother at my son's school. I have 2 kids. They're in 2 different schools. And I do a lot with my daughter's school. So when I show up to my son's school, I don't know a lot of people. I feel very insecure. All the moms are like high-fiving. They know each other. And I'm like, But I say to myself, it's okay. I'm willing to lose this battle. I am willing for someone here to think that I'm not a great mom, which they're not even thinking that, I'm sure. But I'm willing to lose it. And so in that moment, I don't go back into overdrive of like, oh, I feel so bad, so let me volunteer for 62 activities so I feel better about myself. And so you have to make a list of the battles that you're willing to lose. And they're going to change over time, but that's the only way that you can give yourself grace in those situations.
Absolutely. And you touched on this piece that I know was a struggle for me, this control. You know, the control of the lunch, the control of the, you wrote in your book about the woman who had Spirit Week and she was going away for business for a trip and laid out all, you know, the clothes her daughter was to wear. And, you know, we have this grip on how things need to be in our mind again, and just letting go of some of that. Can you speak a bit to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that we want it to be done so well because more so than men, we believe that everything is a reflection of us. So in the Spirit Week example, if that, you know, mom's, you know, daughter goes to school in red, white, and blue day and it's pajama day, that she believes that people are like, oh, you know, Lauren's a knucklehead and can't get her act together. And so I think there's some of that, you know, separation that just has to happen, that, you know, I'm willing to lose the Spirit Week battle, which I am now. I'm like, if the kids want to help out and do it, that's great. But otherwise I can't organize all that. But, and then, you know, you have to separate yourself from it, that, you know, I sure hope that people don't think that I'm a bad mom, but if they do because they wore the wrong thing to school, like, I got bigger fish to fry. You know, I mean, you just have to prioritize.
Yeah, and it comes back to what we were saying before, is that if someone does think I'm a bad mom and they're judging me for that, well, then that's coming from them. Like, that's more about,
Right.
as I said, I was more judgmental and critical of people when I was more judgmental and critical of me. If there's a mom out there who's like, well, Susie must not care about her kids because she didn't show up at the basketball practice.
Yeah.
Like, all right,
Right.
they can think that, but that's okay to let go of those other people's opinions, to dig back into our own opinions.
And there's a lot, on that note, there's a lot that we can learn from men in this area. And, my husband does not think twice about what people think about him because what his children wear to school. I mean, he just doesn't allow any like mental, capacity to go towards that. It's just, he's doing the best he can, and he's just not thinking about that at all. I mean, he'll be like, I'm taking the kid to school. He has a fever. I have a meeting. Like, I don't know what to do,
Right.
and we would be like, oh my God, it just, the stewing, and we'd be at work 4 hours later, yelling at ourselves and, picturing our son in the emergency room, whatever. I mean, we create these stories where men are much better at being like, I'm doing the best I can, and that's good enough for me. And they're not rude about it, I mean, it's just very matter of fact. So I really admire that. And I watch my husband make decisions. And there's definitely times where I'm like, for example, my daughter's a big swimmer, and we were signed up for this timing slot that was given to us like on a Sunday at 3, and neither one of us, could be there. And I was like thinking, oh, what am I going to write back? What I'm going to say? The team's going to be let down. He's going to have to, I'm just like, 30 minutes stewing. And then I said, what should we do about that volunteer thing? And he was like, I already emailed the coach. I told him we weren't available.
Oh.
So in the time that I had been stewing over what was I going to say? How was I going to say it? Could I try and find a sub, or could I change my plans so that I could be there? And all of that time he had already emailed, and he didn't find a solution. He was like, sorry, dude, we can't be there. And I was like, okay.
Yeah. You just let go. That's what's so much. It's just like, let it go. It's not ours to solve. I think women are such fixers and such healers. It's like, and we've been in that position where we've asked someone for help but at some point, we have to put ourselves up there on the priority list. And because otherwise the result is this dragon of self-doubt and this, you feel tired, you're exhausted, you're running around like this bitter, resentful, crazy. It's not fun.
And not to add more pressure to it, but our children see that. And I had an epiphany the other day. My daughter wanted me to drive her to this like just crazy swim practice, and it was like on a Friday night that when I had plans, and I was like, I can't do it. I'm not doing it. And of course she was disappointed, and she let me know that. But you know what I thought? I thought, you know what? I'm teaching my daughter to say no right now. I'm teaching her that she has a role in her life, and when that she's a mother, she doesn't have to do everything for everybody else. So as much as it hurts her that I'm saying no, I hope that when she's a mother, she doesn't say yes to her children every time, and that she takes time for herself. And so there's a lot of upside to saying no. It doesn't have to be all bad.
A lot of upside. In addition to that situation, I had a similar one with my son in a soccer tournament, and it's teaching them how to feel emotions. And you can feel disappointed. Disappointment, again, it's back to what we were saying before, like that nothing's gone wrong here. Like feeling disappointed in that place is totally normal. Like for your daughter to be like, oh yay, mom, I'm so glad that you're sitting home instead of driving me, would be ridiculous or unrealistic at least. And it's like, no, I get that you're disappointed and you wish I had chosen differently. Okay.
Yeah, and I think it's so great. The last chapter of my book is called Raising Dragon Slayers, and it's how we can teach our children to be resilient, to expect self-doubt, to learn how to deal with it. And that's a great example of, in your case, teaching your children to talk about disappointment. I mean, I think all too often, nobody in the household talks about their feelings, talks about their emotions. We don't apologize enough. We just move on to the next busy task. But I think it's really important to say, I can see that you're disappointed. I would be too.
Yeah.
If I wasn't able to go to the soccer tournament, and they just being able to express that, I think is really helpful.
I love it. I love that. And so perfect way to bring this full circle. So we will be discussing your book in my private Facebook community. So everyone go get a copy. We love it. Slay Like a Mother. I just love how you set it up and how you then go into the 7 ways that we're really cutting ourselves down with our self-doubt. And it will be a great book discussion. So Warriors, pay attention in the Facebook community, which is great. And my podcast is called Living a Life, or the Love Your Life Show. I'm like, what is my podcast called? The Love Your Life Show. And are there things that you do, Katherine, every day to sort of set yourself up, to prime yourself for a great day or a life that you love, to stay in this place, keep ourselves out at bay?
Well, I definitely go through phases. I would say right now I'm into a meditation app called Calm, CALM, and they have like a quick 10-minute meditation. And I've been doing in the morning, not every morning, but the fact that it's so already programmed, it only takes 10 minutes and they kind of serve it up to you. So a lot of other meditation apps I have, which I like, but you have to like dig through the content. So you're kind of making a lot of choices as opposed to just whoop. So, that helps me be grateful. It helps me kind of have a little bit of groundedness so that later in the day when I get annoyed by something or frustrated, I can kind of come back to that. Again, I don't do it every day, but it's been meaningful lately.
Okay, wonderful. And your purple spaces on your calendar
and lots of purple on the calendar.
Lots of tips here, Warriors. All right. Well, I will have all show links and everything we mentioned, and also how to find Katherine and how to purchase the book and how to find her website and where she's writing over at show notes, www.smbwell.com/57. And where do you hang out? Do you hang out on Instagram or Facebook or in your living?
Both Instagram and Facebook are both at Slay Like a Mother.
Okay, I will have those links. And I thank you so much for coming on today and helping us all slay our dragons.
Yay, great. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Katherine.